All right, let's get started. So welcome everyone to this talk about ArgoCD CLI, which is about plugins, flexibility, and more. And we're going to take a look at what does this plugins actually look like. But I hope your KubeCon is going good so far. And without wasting much of the time, let's get started. So a little bit introduction about myself. My name is Nitish. I work at Akuity as a software engineer. I'm also an ArgoCD maintainer. I'm a CNCF ambassador. I did my Linux Foundation mentorship with Kubernetes project a couple of years back. And in case you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on all platforms. The username is same. Cool. Let's get started now. So let's go ahead and take a look at the proposal, which is about adding the ArgoCD CLI plugin support proposal. So this actually behaves similar way to how kubectl does that, like how kubectl has a plugin support mechanism. Just want to know how many folks here have an idea about how does kubectl plugin mechanism work. Just raise your hand so that I can get an idea. Okay, very less, but I'll start with that. So let's say that you as a user would want to add certain sort of commands to ArgoCD CLI. How would you typically do that is go to the code, write code for yourself, or maybe raise an issue, let some contributor do that for you, and then raise a PR, maintainers will review it, they'll get it merged, and then you have your one custom command that you would want it in your ArgoCD, right? The problem with this approach is that like as the time grows, and let's say that you have a wish for adding more subcommands, you can't, it's not a convenient process because your expectations with the maintainers might not match. So what kubectl, like let's talk about kubectl before coming to ArgoCD. How they did solve this problem is they introduced the plugin support mechanism, which is about, kubectl says, I'm going to let you put some custom binaries that starts with kubectl name, right? And I'll let you put those binaries in your system's path. So whatever the binaries that you put in your system's path, everything is going to become a subcommand of kubectl itself. That's a similar way we're going to do it for the ArgoCD, and you're going to see how we're going to do that right now. But yeah, coming to this proposal, this was raised by Christian Hernandez from Akuity. And this is about trying to add the plugin support, just like how you have for kubectl. We're going to take a look at it deeply now. So this is a general link for like the PR and the docs. That was the PR that was raised, and the docs are pretty much on the website too. So you can, if you want to, at the end of the session, go ahead and read the docs. Cool. So let's come to the main stuff. What is an ArgoCD plugin? So as the definition says, it's a standalone executable file whose name begins with ArgoCD hyphen. And this is a very important condition that you need to remember. Any binary that starts with ArgoCD hyphen, like any binary name that starts with ArgoCD hyphen, will be considered as a binary that will be respected by ArgoCD to make sure it can consider it as a it's normal, it is its own subcommand. So for example, let's say that you built some sort of binary. When I say binary, let's say that you wrote some shell script, then you had some binary built it, you changed its permissions, you pushed it to your, the executable path, right? And then it's going to get executed. But how is it going to get executed is that, let's say the binary's name is ArgoCD-demo-plugin. That's the binary's name, simple. So, or let's say the binary name is ArgoCD-demo_plugin. These two are the valid binary names, but the reason I'm telling you these are both the valid binary name is because everything after ArgoCD hyphen is automatically going to become a subcommand of ArgoCD. So let's say in this case, you have ArgoCD-demo-plugin. The demo-plugin is going to be like a subcommand of ArgoCD. Now, if you go to the ArgoCD CLI, you will realize, okay, demo-plugin doesn't exist. So how does this demo-plugin become a subcommand? That's the feature, that's a part of this feature, right? But if you have a binary name, something like ArgoCD_demo-plugin, that's not a valid binary name. Why? Because we expect you, the binary name should be ArgoCD hyphen, like the prefix should be ArgoCD hyphen. It should not be anything like ArgoCD underscore. The ArgoCD hyphen should always be the prefix that needs to be added to the binary. So what are the conditions for the plugin? As you know, the first condition should be the binary should have the prefix name as ArgoCD hyphen. So in that case, ArgoCD hyphen demo hyphen demo hyphen demo hyphen plugin is a valid binary name. But ArgoCD underscore demo is an invalid binary. Why? Because ArgoCD underscore is not supported, right? And once you have satisfied those two conditions, the only last condition that you need to satisfy is making sure that the binary that you want to execute, it should reside in anywhere in system's path except relative path. So it should always reside in system's absolute path and never in the relative path. Okay, with that in mind, I already, I think, covered this portion, like how you're going to name a plugin, but it's just that the plugins, again, I'm repeating the same thing, the plugins file name must start with ArgoCD hyphen. So as I mentioned, if you as a user is going to make sure that I type the command ArgoCD demo hyphen plugin, let's say, so it's going to, ArgoCD internally is going to check whether ArgoCD underscore demo underscore plugin binary exists in your system's absolute path or not. If it does, it's going to eventually execute that as a command. But if it doesn't, it's just going to fail. And we're going to take a look at the demo for that. So what are the current limitations of this proposal or this feature right now? So it is currently not possible to create plugins that override existing ArgoCD commands. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have a normal subcommand of ArgoCD, the existing command, such as ArgoCD version. That's going to give you the that's going to give you the version of ArgoCD. But now you're like, I want to make some changes to this current behavior, right? And you're like, let's create probably a new binary called as ArgoCD hyphen version and I'll put it in my system's absolute path. It's not going to work. The reason is it's not going to work is because ArgoCD hyphen version, how is this going to get executed? It's going to get executed like ArgoCD, and then everything after ArgoCD hyphen, which is version, is going to be a normal subcommand. But ArgoCD version is already a normal subcommand that already exists in the code. So it's going to get ignored. And so we'll be seeing in the demo for that. And that's what I have given the example as well. Second thing that's a limitation is that I have written that it's not possible to add a new subcommand, but you can add a new subcommand. The only condition is the name should not match with an existing ArgoCD subcommand. And something that I also want to mention is that related to flags parsing. So let's say that you have flags defined at ArgoCD level, right? Like for ArgoCD normal commands. Those flags are going to be reset to default values for your custom binaries. So let's say that I have a binary called as, let's say that you have set the flag such as log level to JSON, right, for your ArgoCD normal subcommands. So every time you get an error, the logs are going to be printed in JSON format. That's the default way. But you want, the logs should be printed in, let's say, a plain text format for my binaries. That's not going to work because that's currently the limitation. And we're going to make sure that the flag overriding is not possible for your custom binaries. So we're going to take a look at the demo. This is the tool that we're going to take a look at, which is MTA, that stands for Migrate to ArgoCD. And we're going to take a look at how you can use MTA to convert your Flux components probably to an ArgoCD-compatible custom resource. And we're going to demo this with the help of making sure we demo the MTA as well as the plugin support feature. So it's the demo time. Things might go wrong. I'm going to perform a live demo. I haven't recorded anything, but let's see how it goes. So if I go right now and search for my system path, you can obviously see there's a path called as user/local/bin here. This is the path that's eventually existing here, right? So let me try to do that one thing. All right, so these are the binaries that are currently exist on my system's absolute path. So the first condition that I want to make sure, the first condition that I want to make sure is that, so the first condition that we are satisfying is like all these binaries exist in my system's absolute path. That's the first condition we satisfy. The main condition that we need to satisfy here is it should start with ArgoCD hyphen, the binary's name. So if you see every single binary is starting with ArgoCD hyphen, right? So let's try to simply execute a command for now, which is ArgoCD version, right? And it simply prints the ArgoCD version. If I try to execute some another command, ArgoCD cluster list, these are eventually the normal subcommands, right? Now when it comes to, let's say that you want to execute your own customized binary. How we're going to do that is, so let's take about this example, cat, let's see. Yeah. Let me just, okay. I don't know, I never tried doing that. Yeah, better. I think it's good now. So again, anyways, so these were the binaries that were existing in my cluster, those starting with ArgoCD hyphen for now, okay? What we're going to take a look at is if you see ArgoCD version, this is actually the normal subcommand. If you see right now the error that you're seeing because I haven't logged into the cluster, that's okay, we can ignore for that. But let's say I have a binary called as ArgoCD version. I know this is probably not going to, but if I see ArgoCD version, this works well, right? Let's try to execute a binary such as ArgoCD hyphen cluster hyphen list. How we're going to do that is ArgoCD cluster hyphen list. This is now cluster hyphen list is going to become the subcommand of ArgoCD because the binary ArgoCD hyphen cluster hyphen list satisfies all the three conditions. So if I do that, you can see that it's trying to fetch the ArgoCD cluster list. Then it says, obviously some sort of error because we haven't logged in, but that command works expected how we want to be. Let's try to execute some another command such as another plugin called as ArgoCD hyphen version. So if I try to execute the ArgoCD hyphen version binary, which is, so if you see you get this output, but it's not let's try to do that. Okay. Anyways, let's try to execute this plugin, ArgoCD plugin, this one. Yeah, so it's trying to log into your ArgoCD, but it's eventually failing because again, you don't have the ArgoCD UI running. We haven't logged into that. But let's say that you have a plugin called as ArgoCD-cluster. Do you think it's going to get executed? And let's see. So if I try to execute ArgoCD-cluster, it won't get executed. Like you see this output, but I can create a plugin here right now. ArgoCD, let's say I create the plugin ArgoCD app, right? And I say this is the ArgoCD app plugin. Like very simple subcommand. And we're going to provide the permissions. Okay. And then we're going to move the ArgoCD app to user local bin. Yeah. And if I say that, you can see that the plugin is there, which is the ArgoCD app. Now the question is, if you know about the contents of the ArgoCD app, so do you think it's going to get executed? If I try to execute it, it's not getting executed. Why? Because ArgoCD, like the app is eventually this normal subcommand that already exists for ArgoCD. So it's going to see whether ArgoCD app command exists in your cluster, like is it a normal subcommand or not? If it is, yes, we're going to ignore that. Like we're not going to execute the binary for sure. So let's come to the ArgoCD MTA now. So if I go to the MTA, you can see that so this is the MTA tool, it's a migration tool that's going to help you move your Flux customization and Helm releases into an ArgoCD application set or application. Let's take a look at it. So if I try to execute the ArgoCD MTA scan command, it eventually gives me a list of that it's saying that you have a pod Helm release whose name is pod info. It has been created in the default namespace, and it's eventually giving you status of that. I can even show you the example that I applied for that. So this is just manifest. You have a Helm repository named pod info. You have a secret that is getting used by this Helm repository. And then you have a Helm release that has a source reference to this Helm repository. Now the question is, you want to convert this to your, to your ArgoCD compatible CR. So if I again type the command ArgoCD MTA scan, the only thing that I now to do is ArgoCD MTA Helm release, because Helm release is a subcommand of MTA, the binary, right? Then we're going to provide a name for that, which is pod info. And then we're going to provide a namespace, which is default. If I go through that, you can see that it has generated an application for me. And if I try to even apply it to my cluster, it's going to work perfectly fine. So you had if we started from here, you had a Helm repository, and then you had a Helm release, and now we converted into an ArgoCD application CR. The kind is application, it's using the source as Helm and things like that. That's the first definition, right? Like, let's talk about what other things we have in our cluster. MTA scan, yeah, let's see. So if I go to the definitions right now, if I customization, manifest 1.yaml, right? So you have a customization here. You have, first of all, a Git repository in the default namespace, and then you have a customization resource, which is called as pod info, again in the default namespace. That is referring this Git repository that we created in the default namespace. I've already applied this manifest. That's the reason when I type ArgoCD MTA scan command, you can see this customization getting appeared here. Now, if I want to get this converted to an ArgoCD application resource, again, the command is going to be fairly simple how we do that for Helm release. It's like ArgoCD MTA customization, and my name, that's it. So you're going to provide the pod info as a name, because that's the name of the customization we want to actually convert to an ArgoCD CR. And since it resides in the default namespace, we just provide the namespace flag, and it does that. So if I try it, it actually generates me an application set. So MTA generally generates application set for your customization objects, for your Flux customizations, and general application CRs for your Flux Helm releases, right? If I try to execute the same command for the another customization, which is my customization, MTA customization doing the name flag and the my customization, and the namespace is default. If we do that, it's eventually going to do the same job for us. So you can see it generated an application set for us, right? All the secret is going to be fairly same, right? Then you're using the Git generator here. Then we're using the path generator, the path field here, and then we're excluding the specific path. So coming to the same thing is, we started it from, we have the Flux customizations and the Flux Helm releases, and this is how you would typically convert your Flux compatible resources to your ArgoCD compatible CRs. So that was a bit of the demo that I wanted to present. I'm open for questions if anybody have it. But before, so this is the last slide that we're going to present. I'm open for the questions now, but just before the questions, if you are interested in probably learning more about ArgoCD, there has been a book that was recently written by Christian Hernandez and Andrew Block, who are the ArgoCD maintainers. So in case you want to probably do that, you can scan that here. And now we're good for the questions if anyone have it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How do we list out all the plugins which I have to see? Like, how many plugins is already here in the system?
The only thing that you can do is, like, as far as I use that command, so the question is, like, how do I list all the plugins that have the ArgoCD-write? It's just that you have to use the list command and then use the grep -i, probably add a use WC as a piped scope, and then it's going to give you a list of all the ArgoCD-plugins that are available on your system. So there's no specific command that could be like an issue that could be added to make sure how many plugins exist on your system. But if for now, I would typically suggest how you would typically do that is, as of how we were doing here, like ls, how we were doing that here, you see, we have the 7 plugins here,
This is one specific path.
Yeah.
Could be anywhere.
Yeah. It can be anywhere in the path, exactly. But it should be in the system's absolute path. Yeah. Yeah, I do see a question there. No,
What's the advantage of having that plugin run executed by ArgoCD? Do you share any information from the current ArgoCD contracts recently?
so the main advantage that you would typically, so the question is, what's the main advantage? I would say the main advantage that you would typically get is trying to execute your own subcommands that get resonated with the existing subcommands already. So let's say that you have logged into your cluster already, right? And you want to do some specific tasks, making sure your normal subcommands also gets executed on the same way. If this feature wasn't there, you would typically have to do some sort of writing bash scripts and all sort of stuff. But again, the problem wouldn't have been solved. Right now it's getting solved because with the help of these features, like you execute those commands as a subcommands of ArgoCD itself. So ArgoCD doesn't have to know about what context is being used. It can simply use the current context that it was defined initially.
Can I not just do like xarg minus n1 pass some parameters along?
You can do that. So this was a similar question that was even raised in ArgoCon as well about like what's the core functionality. And I would say one of the reasons we also tried to did that was trying to take inspiration from why kubectl did that. And the only reason we got to know was like because users would want to have typically subcommands and have making sure they have the same context while executing their own subcommands. So that was one of the reasons they gave for adding that feature. And we would typically be moving forward giving the same reasons for that, making sure the context remains the same and things like that. Yeah, yeah, I see a question, yeah.
So I want to ask like this, if we are providing 10 new commands,
Yeah.
So the end user, actually I built an ArgoCD platform.
Yeah.
So for the end user, the application teams who are using my platform, they have to install all those 10 commands separately.
They will have to make sure,
Yeah,
yes.
so is there a way of packaging this and giving it together, like it looks seamless for the user?
Depends upon, so if you really want to package this, I think it depends upon like developers team if they want to ship those binaries with the code that they're eventually generating. But in case if you want ArgoCD to do that, I think the main requirement is for any user using that, they need to make sure those binaries are existing on their local machines and not on like someone else, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I have one more question. Plugin mechanism is always great, so we can do the customizations,
Yeah.
whatever are specific to us.
Yeah.
But from a different angle, when people are able to customize and make their own plugin, do you see that there will be a point they will stop contributing to the open source community, like whatever functionality they need, they implement on their own, and they will not contribute upstream to the open source? Do you
I
see
didn't,
that as a risk?
I guess I didn't understand the proper question. Like you,
Okay, so I need some custom. For example, the plugin which you showed, migrating from Flux to ArgoCD.
Yeah.
So suppose one company have a need. So for example, if your company have that need, you implemented that plugin and you are using that. But some other people also might have similar need. If you would have contributed to that ArgoCD CLI itself.
yeah, yeah. I think I would not add a comment here, but I think the typical for any org, maybe building on the top of a project is like the biggest competitor is going to be open source because you're eventually getting all the things for the free. But I think the main hurdle is people trying to build that for them. So not everyone has the time for that. Because there are like a lot of other problems everyone is trying to solve. But to answer your question, I think for everyone, the biggest competitor is open source. Maybe, yeah, I won't leave a comment based on that. Yeah, yeah, I see a question.
Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a question. Maybe you have already covered in your earlier session. We are still into evaluation whether Flux and ArgoCD. What should we do? Like, whether the Flux is ready or whether the ArgoCD is okay for us? Being an enterprise company, which one we should prefer? Second, is Flux having the same functionality which you have just showcased, MTA?
Yeah.
That they also saying, okay, convert the ArgoCD to Flux.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like it typically depends upon your organization needs. Some problems are getting solved by one tool, while some problems are going to get solved by another tool. Having said that, I wouldn't again typically leave a comment based on which tool is better because it totally depends on your organization. What problem or what challenges are you trying to solve?
No, but what are the higher level situations where you're saying that these are the critical ones which
I wouldn't leave a comment based on that. Like, you understand? Yeah. 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 Exactly. Um, anyways, yeah.
So to create this ArgoCD plugins, is there any standard interfaces or the SDKs available? Like kubectl has the crew.
No, you don't have any. We can probably add as a part of feature enhancement, like probably adding some sort of interface for that. But right now, there's no currently interface supporting it. Yeah. All right, and I guess no more questions, so we're good to go. Thank you everyone for joining the talk.